All right, and welcome back again. Kelly Stewart and Brad Newitt still here in studio to talk Summit League men's hoops now, similar to what we went through on the women's side. But let's start out with the strength of schedule. I mean, there are some big-time matchups coming up for our Summit League teams. USD men played TCU very close last night, and then South Dakota State has a big one tomorrow.
Yes, South Dakota State has a huge one tomorrow. Going to play at Kansas, which is obviously no small task to go to Allen Fieldhouse, historic Allen Fieldhouse, and try to play against the Jayhawks, a team that just a couple nights ago beat Kentucky in that big tip-off games that they have every year, and a preseason top 5 team that's got loads of NBA talent on it.
Yeah, KU basketball, always a great team, just a historic team. I know you're K-State alone, but KU basketball, they are good. But also the USD men, they're big games this year. Duke and UCLA. So what do you see? I mean, Duke's already on December 2nd. What do you see coming in that game?
Well, and that's another one where you're just going to go and you're going to hope, if you're Craig Smith, that your guys can go and compete and honestly just not get embarrassed. Because when Duke plays at home, they embarrass ACC teams there. And so it's obviously Cameron Indoors is another special place to get to go play and the experience of it, but a very difficult place. Now, the UCLA game, that's maybe a little more intriguing. That's a game that after what I saw at a USD last night, hanging on the road with TCU, a very good Big 12 team, I think USD could go out and hang a little bit more with UCLA, a team, though, that does have a lot of talent. But if you've been following the news, has some suspensions due to some trouble. Some players got over in mainland China. So.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, it's definitely a distraction. Maybe could benefit the Yotes. But a big reason for, I mean, these teams being able to challenge these big powerhouses are the standouts. So let's talk about some of the early standouts in the Summit League so far. And number one, I think the player everyone's talking about, Mike Daum. He's been doing great.
He has, although I would say a little bit of a quiet start. You know, in their first game against Cal Irvine did a really nice job defending him. He only had 13 points, but boy, he had a huge breakout game the other night against Alabama State. Kind of the Mike Daum that we've gotten to know. 30 points, 13 rebounds. It was his 13th 30-point game in his career. And yeah, I mean, for him to be able to now go play against the University of Kansas, it's been a great challenge for him and his team, and I think that's what a lot of people are excited about this game. How does Mike Daum do against some real high-level talent? Yeah,
kind of the story within the story, the game within the game, but also looking at USD, a big reason that they were in that TCU game last night, and was Matt Mooney. I mean, we knew him from last year, but what do you think of his start this year?
Well, he's a player that when he really gets going offensively, he can really ride the streak of that, and that's really what he did in that game against TCU. Had 31 points, really shot it well from the three-point line. Did a very similar thing 2 nights before that in a very big win for South Dakota at Bowling Green, where he had 26 points. And he's their main weapon, obviously, on the offensive end. And as he goes, USD is going to go offensively, but they really need Mooney to be playing well and shooting it with good efficiency.
Yeah, well, you mentioned as he goes, USD goes in that Bowling Green game. He had 2 points in the first half, and that was a come-from-behind win. But, yeah, 24 points in the second half of that one. Very impressive. And then I know we've been talking a lot about Dakota schools, but Bryson Scott on Fort Wayne also off to a good start. Just a solid player for them.
Exactly, and he had a great season last year. This is a kid that transferred from Purdue, and so he's going to be a high-volume shooter for them. He had 30-plus in their first game against Oakland, a former Summit League team, but he's a guy that can really carry Fort Wayne as well. Obviously, they got John Conchar to go along with him, but they've got a really great guard in Bryson Scott.
They do. Well, let's move on to the freshman standouts, some little diaper dandies, as Dick Vitale would say. But starting with SDSU, one of the supporting cast members for Mike Daum is David Jenkins Jr. So what's he look like?
Well, very interesting how he's burst on the scene. South Dakota State's bringing him off the bench right now. He had 20 points the other night against Alabama State, can really, really shoot the basketball. This kid went to a prep school last year, which meant he graduated high school, went to another year without going to college, and that really helped his strength, his maturity. And TJ Otzelberger may have a great guard here now that can really help fill another scoring role to go along with Mike Daum.
And then looking at NDSU, we haven't talked about them a ton, but Cameron Hunter has been good for the Bison.
Outstanding game at USC. He had 24 points. This is a player that redshirted last year for North Dakota State, a freshman guard out of Olathe, Kansas, a suburb of Kansas City, and his dad played at Kansas, so he's got good bloodlines. And boy, he had a great game out in Southern California the other night.
Very impressive. Young talent going on at NDSU. Well, some surprise players that aren't necessarily freshmen we haven't touched on yet. One of them in particular, Tyler Hagedorn for USD. He's kind of, I mean, he burst on the scene a little bit with Tyler Flack's injuries last year. But this year, you can tell he put in that work in the offseason. Yeah,
and he's really playing with a lot of confidence. It's kind of like he has taken on the role of being expected to score, and he's okay with that. But he is a matchup nightmare because you can see he can step out and shoot the basketball, and he's got great size to do this. So he's kind of taken a little bit of what Mike Daum likes to do, pull the big out away from the hoop, knock down the three-point shot. He had 22 points in that game against TCU last night.
Yeah, he was impressive, a huge reason they got into it. And I feel like with Craig Smith's busy motion offense and Mooney attracting so much attention, you know, players driving into the paint, Tristan Simpson, Hagedorn can really be the beneficiary of that. So let's take a quick look at the Summit League men's preseason polls. I know we've talked about these before. South Dakota State, followed closely by South Dakota, North Dakota State, Fort Wayne, Denver, Omaha, Oral Roberts, Western Illinois. Really quick, Brad, have you seen anything that's really surprised you in this order so far?
I wouldn't say so. I think, you know, really those top 4 teams in my mind all have great chances to win this thing. They all have the talent to do it, and veteran guards, that's nice.
All right, well, definitely looking forward to that Summit League season. Great stuff. Thank you so much, Brad. Looking forward to calling more games with you this season. All right, well, next on Midco Sports Tonight, we recap a big night of volleyball for UND, who started the Big Sky Tournament, and also doing a hockey preview. Stay tuned.